Welcome, guys, to the first ever New World Training and Rehab podcast Q&A. We just got done recording an awesome podcast with Will Morris. He's a doctor of physical therapy. He's a
There you go.
physical therapist, and he's also a starting strength coach. So first off, we've got my co-host, Nick Cephalo. How's it going, Nick?
Hello, everyone. Hello.
And Will, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. We really appreciate it.
No, I appreciate you guys asking me on here. You know, it kind of gets to the point where you wake up one day and you think, how did I ever get here? Like, this is almost surreal to me to even be invited to like be on like y'all's podcast. Cause like for me is just how I think about myself. I'm like, why am I even here? Like, how do these guys even know who I am? And so it's just kind of surreal to be here. But I appreciate it. It's a great honor for me to be on y'all's podcast.
The power of the internet. That's how you're here. But
That's how it feels to be part of the new world, Will.
So
I'm good with that.
So the first one I wanted to open up with, and since Will is a starting strength coach, I've been trying to figure this out for a couple of years. So the owner, the head, and the founder of Starting Strength, Mark Rippetoe, he has an interesting way of how to pronounce the number after 4, and we were just wondering if you could give me a Mark Rippetoe pronouncement and also a spelling of how you would spell that.
Yeah, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay.
And I don't know. I think I'd probably spell it Faahve, but it depends because you could add additional A's depending on how much of an emphasis he's doing that. And it's not just with 5s. My wife's name is Micah, and her name is, whenever rips around her name is Micah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
so
very elongated.
It's a heavy emphasis on the vowels there.
Woo! Do you add A's when you're leaning against something, or is that just in general always add a bunch of A's?
No, because whenever Rip is leaning on something, he's usually not talking. Like you see so many pictures of him leaning on things because that's what he does whenever he's disappointed.
Gotcha. Okay. I just want to hear your argument towards a program being more consisting more of big compound exercises compared to more single joint and smaller isolated exercises.
So I think the biggest reason that you would do that is simply because of economy of time, right? That I don't have 8 or 10 hours to spend at the gym. I'm not Phil Heath. I'm not a Mr. Olympia competitor who gets sponsorship money to train like that. So for me, it becomes economy of time. I can do a lot with an hour and a half in the gym just doing compound movements. Whereas if I were to try to split my body up into a bunch of different pieces and try to train all those things individually, that it's going to take me a lot more time. And I have other priorities outside of the gym in my professional life that I just don't have the time to do that. And I think it's just a better return on my investment. And because I have a focus on strength as far as my own personal desires for what I get out of my training, that I'm going to use the bigger movements because those force me to move the heaviest amount of weight, right? And so I think that would be just my short answer on why you would do that, is that you just don't have enough time to just break everything, and you don't have the physiology to train for that long, right? To train for 4 or 5 hours a day. Most of us don't have the physiology to do that.
So you're not Phil Heath, so you're more like Dorian Yates. Is that what you're trying to get at?
No, let's see. I would be more like the guy that comes in to tell them that they need to get their spray tan on. Like, I'm completely outside of the sport. I'm just some guy that just kind of hangs around. Like,
So Will is a physical therapist in the military. We talked about it in the podcast, but so he gets to see a whole array of different types of pain, types of injuries, types of clients, dealing with different types of clients. So I had a person write in a question, and it was talking about chronic pain. So I just wanted your thoughts on and kind of how you go about it when someone has chronic pain and is frustrated with it still being there after trying a bunch of different things or going through therapy for a long time. What is your conversation or response to someone when they ask, will this ever be fixed?
Yeah. So whenever it comes to chronic pain, I think a lot of my clinical practice, patterns, whenever it comes to dealing with chronic pain, it comes from training that I've done with Adrian Liu and it's called the International Spine and Pain or International Pain and Spine Institute. I think that Adrian Liu is probably the best educator whenever it comes to pain science in the physical therapy world. And like whenever I do my continuing education classes and stuff like that, if anything pops up that has Adrian Liu presenting on something where it has to do with pain, I'm going to take that class 100 times out of 100. So I think that, my typical, how I address this is that I spend time explaining to them what is pain and give them some pain science education. This is why your body hurts. This is the physical mechanism that your body goes through that develops this unpleasant experience of pain. And then when people understand that it's not just tissue damage that causes pain, and they realize that there's a lot of other inputs, there's their own fear, their own anxiety, the culture that they grew up in, how their parents and their grandparents dealt with pain, how people around them deal with pain, mental health disorders, all those types of things factor into the pain experience. And whenever people get a pretty good grasp that it's not just pain equals tissue damage, then they start to see why the treatment that they've gone through has not been that. And then part of it, and you can almost say the prognosis gets much better once they get to the point where they kind of own their condition, and that they realize that they are the chief clinician when it comes to treating their pain, that it's their input, what they do, how they live their life and stuff like that, that they become the terminal provider, so to speak, that they will not get better until they get to the point where they kind of own that, and they realize that they are a key player, the most important player in the treatment of their chronic pain.
I like that. Cool. Well, so we have a special question from your friend Rory Alter, and she was just wondering if you really are a physical therapist.
Yeah. So I love Rory. And by the way, like, have you guys had Rory on the podcast before?
We have
already.
So yes, it's going to come out.
I was going to say, she is an absolutely brilliant physical therapist, and she's the quality of physical therapist that I would aspire to be if I was even capable of getting to her level. Like I'm nowhere on the same level as Rory, not in strength, not in clinician skills, nothing like that. But I was having a discussion with her. I can't remember when it was, but I told her that I think that I was like the benchmark for the Baylor DPT program, where they have their admission standards, and they just for one time thought, what if we just lower that just enough? Like, what's the least capable, least intelligent person we can bring into the program and still get them to pass? So I think I kind of just became the benchmark for that program.
Wow. All right. Well, so he's a physical therapist, though. Yeah.
I have the degree. I have the license. I don't know how that happened. Whenever I showed up to take the licensure test, I remember you do it at a computer. You show up to a Prometric testing facility, and you sit behind the computer, and it's a 250 question test. And the first question popped up, and I was like, I don't know any of this. I'm just gonna wing this.
Just go for it.
Is there any proof? We can have?
Yeah, we're gonna need to know. First thing I think of when I think of starting strength, I think low bar squat. So as a physical therapist and a starting strength coach, I think you are a very qualified to answer this question and kind of walk us through your strategy of how you deal with this. But if someone comes to you and they say their elbow or maybe their forearms bothering them during the low bar squat, what's kind of your initial reaction, and maybe your changes that you'll tweak around to see if we can just kind of relieve it?
Almost entirely, people who have elbow pain whenever they low bar squat, it's because their wrists and their hand and their shoulder is internally rotating against the bar. So they're basically just giving themselves And everybody wants to say elbow tendonitis, but what it really is, it's valgus extension overload syndrome. You're putting yourself in this position and you're internally rotating against the bar, and it's just causing gapping of your medial elbow. And that's what the problem is. But valgus extension overload syndrome can cause lateral elbow pain too in the radial head. And so the way that you fix that is you get them to stop turning their arms into the bar, that they have to get comfortable with supporting the bar with their back and not trying to push the bar or drive the bar into their back.
Now, would it be against the law to high bar?
No, it's not at all. I mean, the main reason why I teach the low bar squat is because the technique, whenever you're coaching it, is much more precise, that you give people like hard, fast, like hard and straight cues on how they're going to do it. It just makes it more easily reproducible. And the more reproducible somebody's technique is, the more that I can progress them and the more comfort that they get with it. And so that's why I prefer the low bar squat. High bar squat is extremely helpful for people who have like FAI or something like that, where they cannot get enough hip flexion to get into the bottom position of a low bar squat. So I use high bar squat a lot. I use it in my programming and stuff like that. But almost 100% of the time, the elbow pain comes from people like really twisting their arms into the bar instead of just supporting the bar with their elbows, or supporting the bar with their back. And so whenever you can fix that, the elbow pain goes away.
So this is off the cuff, but how do you so this is unwritten Q&A question. When you come and you're coaching someone to low bar squat and they might not have the flexibility to, or I guess mobility or whatever word you want to use to get
use the
into
right
that
terms.
Position. Oh, sorry. To get into that low bar position, are there any, I guess, strategies that you use to help them progressively get better into that position?
I think like if you really want to get them to low bar squat, you just have to know that it's going to be a progression, that every time they get under the bar, they're going to try to get the bar just a little bit lower. It might be a couple of millimeters each time, but usually, if somebody will just be diligent about it and not just throw the baby out with the bathwater, that if they'll just be diligent about it, within a month, most people can get into a low bar squat position. If I still need them to low bar squat for whatever reason, and they're just physically unable of getting into that position because, they're older, they've had surgery or something like that, that really limits their ability to get into that position, then I have my own technique for using a safety squat bar that puts them into a low bar position. And then I'll just switch them over to that.
We got one more question, and I think this is the make it or break it question for you, Will. This will make the whole interview, the whole Q&A. I know you're really big into bodybuilding and isolation exercises. No, I'm joking. So if you had to pick one exercise you could do for the rest of your life, would you rather only be able to do bicep curls or only be able to do knee extensions, which some people would say are the bicep curls of the lower body for the pump factor?
If I just had to do one of those exercises, as much as I hate to say it, I'd probably do the leg extensions, just because if I could only do one exercise, I'm just going to choose the one that uses the most muscle mass. And like I've gotten way away from thinking that like my physical appearance is ever going to be is ever going to attract anybody or anything like that. I've been married happily for a long time. She already knows what she's got, right? So I don't think I would pick the bicep curls just because like I would try to choose whatever would allow me to use the most muscle mass, and nobody's going to be looking at my quads. Nobody's going to be looking at my biceps either. So I think I'll just train the most muscle mass.
So I think you really just want to be Quadzilla.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, you just want to wear short shorts instead of a cutoff. Yeah. So, okay, I understand. Yeah. Nick, what about you?
That's exactly what it is.
Well, what I do?
Yeah.
Just leg extensions all day.
Really?
I already have fat legs, so I might as well just juice them up even more.
I think I'm going to go against you guys. I think I'm a bicep guy. It kind of just feels good.
You look like it.
Well,
you look like a bicep
other people
guy.
might say otherwise, but well, That is the
Bro.
end. That's all the questions we got. Will, thank you so much for coming on.
Yes, thank Will.
Yeah,
absolutely.
really appreciate it. And thank you guys for joining us on the first Q&A. We're going to have this for every single guest we have on. So stay tuned, subscribe, and we'll see you guys later. See ya.